everybody, it's Bren from Kindred Acres Homestead, and I am here with no makeup on, wet hair, on this rainy day. I just pulled up to True Rest Float Spa, and I'm about to go in and do my first float therapy, which I'm super excited about. So float therapy, if you don't know what it is, it's where they have these big pods that you can go in, like miniature swimming pools, and you float in them, and they're filled with salt water, like magnesium sulfate, Epsom salt basically, and it makes you really buoyant, and you float in magnesium, and it's supposed to like put you into like a deep trance, a deep meditation state, and a relaxation state. And it cuts you off from any stimuli. So you can close the pod and have it completely dark and soundproof. And I haven't experienced it myself, but from what others have expressed, that it feels kind of like what you would imagine a baby being inside a mom's womb, and the comfort of that. And some people fall asleep through it, and it's totally fine. You're gonna float no matter what because of the salts. There's so much salt in there that it keeps you floating. But it's quite an experience. Your body does absorb some of the magnesium, so it helps ease muscle strain, sore back, tension, stress, anxiety. People use it for PTSD, all different kinds of things. And they provide music if you choose to do it, or you could go completely silent, which I think I'm going to do today, is go completely silent. And then afterwards, since it's my first float, they offer me a spot at the oxygen bar. So I get to go for oxygen therapy afterwards, and they can add to the oxygen flow whatever additions that you want. So like if you're doing it for like anxiety, they add some little essential oils, things like that, for like diffuser. So I'm really excited. So I'm gonna go inside, and I'll try and do a video when I get in there to show you what the pod and the room looks like, and I'll do a video after to let you know what my experience was like. Okay, so after spending some time in a salt room, relaxing with some herbal essential oils diffusing, I'm now in my pod room. Has a shower and has a shampoo, body wash, conditioner. It's got some necessities right here, some supplies that you'll need for your float. And there's the pod. Super excited. I'm going to turn that light off as soon as I get in, and you can choose music or no music. I'm going music less quiet. I want quiet, completely quiet. So my time's already going, so I'm going to jump in and I'll talk after. Okay, so I finished my float about an hour and a half ago. I'm home now. I've got a heat pad on my belly, and I'm relaxing, comfy clothes. So I'm ready to share what that was like. So I have a lot to share, actually. It was quite an interesting experience. I didn't know what to expect because I've had friends that have gone and done the float therapy, and each of them had their own opinion or experience to share. It was quite different from each other, so it seems like everybody's experience is very unique to their own. So I was pretty set in my mind that I really wanted to go in there without choosing any of the music. I didn't want any sound, I didn't want any light, and I was sure I was going to close the pod. I know a lot of people are apprehensive about doing it because it feels claustrophobic or whatever, they get anxious, but I was already in the mindset that that's what I was going to do when I went there. And so I get into my room, and they had already briefed me on what I was supposed to do prior to getting into the pod. And it wasn't that I wasn't listening, because I definitely was. I was paying attention, but I guess once the tour guide had left, or I don't remember what they call themselves, the assistant, anyhow, she had left, I was really anxious to get into the pod. And so my mind just kind of fast forwarded past a few steps, not intentionally, but I went and got into the shower, and you were supposed to put your earplugs in first, and I forgot to do that. And so I didn't realize until later on, until I actually was in the pod, that I didn't have my earplugs in. So I went and showered, and I was super excited. I just jumped right into the pod, and then I was like only feet in. I didn't like sit down in the pod yet before I realized, oh my gosh, my face is still wet. I'd forgotten to use, they give you a face towel to dry your hairline and your face really well so that it doesn't give water a pathway to want to travel, because you want to try and avoid getting the water in your eyes when you're in the pod because it's salty. So I had to step back out and dry my face. And then I finally went in and I sat down in the pod and I went to go lay back. And that's when I was like, oh gosh, water just got in my ear. I forgot my earplugs. So I had to get back out and put my earplugs in. See, this is what happens when you get too anxious and skip steps. So I got my earplugs in, and then I finally got in the pod. And right away, I closed the pod and I turned the light out. And so initially, I was perfectly fine. I didn't feel like major anxiety about being in a dark, enclosed space. It was super quiet. The only thing that you can hear is your heartbeat and your breath. That's it. And it's actually amplified because you're probably, the water came about up to here on my face. So my ears, even though I had earplugs in, my ears were in the water. And so it's like, imagine hearing that underwater. It just kind of sounded a little bit amplified. And so I was hearing my heartbeat and my breath. And then, of course, a few little anxious thoughts, not like extreme where I started feeling like panicked or super anxious, but a few thoughts did cross my mind. I'm like, what if I need to open the pod to get out? I can't see where the pod doors are now. And so I was like, no big deal. I told myself in my mind, no big deal. I'll feel for them. And that thought just drifted away. And another thought came into my mind, well, what if I do get salt in my eye? I can't see where the shelf in the pod is that has the towel and the clean water spray. And I'm like, okay, again, no big deal. I'll just close my eyes tight and not panic and feel for it. And so just like a couple little thoughts like that just came into my mind. It wasn't like super strong or like, oh my gosh, like I start panicking. It was just, I took note to the thoughts that were going on in my mind. And I addressed them and I acknowledged them, and then they just drifted off, and that was that. And then, so now at this point, I'm like, okay, I need to focus on relaxing. And so when I was doing the tour, the lady had explained that there's like this little styrofoam halo thing that floats that you could put under your head. And she's like, some people like to use it, some people don't. She's like, I personally don't like anything touching me when I float. Some people will use it half the time. Some people don't use it at all. So it's completely up to you. Now, given that I went in with the idea that I really wanted the full experience of complete zero gravity without any outside stimulation, I made the decision to go into the pod without the halo. Now, the halo is on the shelf inside the pod, so if I changed my mind, I knew I can get it. So anyway, I'm without the halo now, and I'm floating. And after I got past those few little, I'll call them anxious thoughts, now I'm trying to focus on relaxing. So now I'm doing intentional breathing, and I'm counting my breath in and I'm out, and just doing intentional breathing. And you can't fully relax when you're doing intentional breathing, at least for me, because you're focused on breathing and actually doing the breath, but it helps to take all the other anxious thoughts out of your mind. And so then I finally started slipping into natural breathing, where I wasn't even paying attention to the fact that I was breathing. It was just happening naturally for me. It wasn't a forced, controlled breath. And that's when I started to really feel like I was slipping, really into the experience. But I felt some strain on my shoulders, and I thought, okay, well, they just need to adjust. And they did say in the prep video that you may feel some areas in your body that have inflammation that maybe only hurt a little. They may feel a little bit more amplified when you're floating, because all your senses are much more heightened. And they said just allow the magnesium to heal and do its job. So I said, okay, maybe I know I carry my stress in my shoulders, so maybe my shoulders just need a little bit of longer to relax. And so after about 5 minutes, I just felt like I couldn't get comfortable enough to really fully relax. So I decided to feel for the shelf and put the halo under my head. And I was really glad I did because it was way more comfortable and I was able to relax. So now I'm still not completely sunken into a deep meditation at this point yet, but I'm much more calm, although a few outside thoughts did slip into my mind, which I thought were a little funny that I'll share because I'm weird and so who cares? But I started to feel like I was in a sci-fi movie where they like have like people that are being cloned or aliens like in these pods floating around. I started envisioning that and I just started laughing for a split second because I'm like, this is really weird because that's what it reminded me of. But then I really sunk into the calmness of the space and I noticed my heartbeat slowed down drastically, and my breath slowed down. And like I said, I was no longer intentionally controlled breathing. It was just happening naturally at this point, and my body just kind of melted into the pod, into the water. And at that point I was just completely relaxed, and I started to drift off actually into sleep a couple times, and I would fall into sleep and then I would startle awake and it's like, oh my gosh. And I wish I hadn't. I wish I just stayed asleep and just relaxed, but my body naturally kind of like woke me up a couple times. But it was still an amazing, relaxing experience. Actually, the person who was walking me through it said afterwards, when I told her that I'd fallen asleep, she said that's impressive because a lot of people don't fall asleep on their first float. They tend to be more anxious, and it takes time to get relaxed and used to the experience. But I fall asleep. I did notice, like, I did change positions a couple of times. And I did notice that my senses were definitely more heightened because when you make even subtle movements, the water kind of rocks a little bit. And so your whole body kind of just shifts and moves and floats a little bit and changes direction and position in the pod. And you know that it's not happening at any great speed or force, but it feels like light speed, like your body's just being sucked in a different direction. At least it did for me. And I took note of that. It was kind of cool though. It felt really interesting, but definitely your sense of feel of direction is very heightened, at least for me. Um, and I think that was the only other thing I really took note of. The parts of my body, like my belly was above water, but obviously it had gotten wet. So the parts that had gotten wet but were no longer in water, they started to crust up with like salt. Like salt was just completely covered. My belly was completely covered in salt. And I also noticed that the feel of the water was like really, it almost felt oily. It felt like so silky almost. But it was definitely from the salt. Salt does that. And so I found that very interesting too. And what else can I share? I think that was really it. I really enjoyed the rest of the time just relaxing. Towards the last 5 minutes, they do put some calming, quiet music on. It starts off very low and quiet, and then it gets a little bit louder and a little bit louder, just during the last 5 minutes, if you choose to go silent in the pod. And, the last 1 minute, there's a really like futuristic voice that comes on the intercom that says, please exit the pod. It was really funny. Kind of just rounded out my sci-fi experience of this float therapy. But was it relaxing? Was it, how did I feel? Yes, it was very relaxing. My skin felt amazing after, by the way. My hair feels good. My skin feels super soft. I didn't have it. I thought I had a couple small little, like a little paper cut on my hand and just like a little cut on my other finger that I thought were going to hurt. They give you like Vaseline to put over any cuts so that it doesn't burn, but I didn't put any Vaseline on. I don't like Vaseline products. And it didn't burn at all. So it was fine for me. And what else can I share? I think that was really it. It was really nice. So when I got out of the pod, I showered again, dried off, and then I went over to the Oxygen bar. So they have like a little lounge area that has like a table, coffee table set up with adult coloring books, some journals, some reading material about float therapy and the benefits and stuff like that, and all different stuff there. And then they have these like beakers, colorful beakers that have water or fluid in it. I'm assuming it's water, and also infused with essential oils. And you can choose which one you want, and you get these little nose pod things that go up your nose, and it's forced oxygen. It's not powerful at all. It's not like as much flow that you would get if you were in a hospital or anything like that, but it's just a very, very low flow of forced oxygen with essential oil. And I sat there for just a few minutes and I kept my eyes closed. I had my shoes off and I sit Indian style on the couch with my head back, and I just took some slow, deep breaths in and out, in and out. And I did that for a few minutes before I actually sat and I journaled a little bit. They have a public journal that you could just write your experience. So I just wrote a little something in there. And then that was it. I left. So it was really, oh, they bring you tea too. They bring you herbal tea, and they bring you or water if you choose to. And I don't think I talked about when you first get there. Actually, before you even go into the pod, you go into a salt room. It's a room that has like a wall from floor to ceiling of thick pink Himalayan sea salt tiles. And they have like two little like recliner chairs, and they bring you some herbal tea, and that's where you watch your video briefing that explains what to expect or what to do. And then you just sit in there and relax while they clean out the pod and get it ready for you. So I got to experience the salt room, the float therapy, the oxygen bar, and it was really nice. The facility was clean. It smelled good. It was clean. Everybody was super friendly and helpful. I did take note to the fact that it was a little bit loud, like especially around the desk area. When I first walked in, I felt like it was like a little loud and overwhelming. I didn't expect that. I expected to be very quiet and tranquil, but the music that they had playing was a little too loud for my appreciation. Thankfully, I couldn't hear it once I got into the pod. But when you first walked in and you're trying to get to the point where you're like getting ready to relax, it was just too much for me. And then like all the people there that were talking to you, like to give you the instructions and things, they seemed to talk just a little bit too loud for my liking. They were very upbeat and kind of, I don't know, just not as calming as I would like. But that was just something I took note of, and maybe it's just me being picky, but overall the experience was great. I did end up getting a membership because I would love to go again. I'm excited to go again. And yeah, so that was it. I feel like my aches and pains, my muscles feel very relaxed right now. Everything feels very relaxed. Even my shoulders. I'm surprised at how loose they feel right now. And I do want to share also something that I do recommend, at least for me, what I had wished I had done differently, or not so much done differently, but even though I had a snack, because they tell you to eat before you go, at least 30 minutes prior to going, because you don't want to go on an empty stomach, because you'll hear all your tummy grumbles and stuff like that, and you won't be able to relax. So I ate a very small meal before I went, but the float therapy seemed to make me very hungry, because I don't ever get hungry that quickly after eating and that much, but I was famished when I got out of there. So I wish I had brought, and I kept thinking about strawberries. I wanted strawberries so bad. So I wish I had brought some fresh fruit in the car so that I could snack in the car on the way home, and water. I was so parched. Even though they gave you tea and water throughout the whole process, I was very thirsty in the car ride home, and I didn't have a canteen with me. I almost always have a canteen with me, but I didn't have a canteen with me. So next time I go, I will have a snack in the car, some fresh fruit and some water ready for me in the car. They also said that they provide everything, which they did. They provided the towels. They have little containers on the wall of shampoo, conditioner, and body wash. And they have everything, the earplugs, the Vaseline, all of that good stuff. But I still brought an extra beach towel, and I was so glad I did, because they only give you one towel. So after your shower, after the pod, you use that towel to dry off with, and then the floor is soaking wet, and it's all tile, and it's not like it's a big room. You have no choice but to stand there in the wet. So when you go to put your pants on, they're gonna get wet. So I put the towel down on the floor to stand on, and then I didn't have a towel for my hair. So thankfully I brought my own towel, and I had a towel for my hair and to dry my face with. And because I didn't want to use their towel to dry my face. I don't know why, I was just grossed out. But anyway, so yeah, so bring your own towel, even though they say you don't need to. I found it helpful. And I think that was it, really. I really enjoyed the experience. I still feel pretty calm. They say that effects last for about 3 hours after, and I can definitely see that. I feel very loose and calm. This is probably the most upbeat I've been doing this video since I got out of the pod. Actually, when I first got out of the pod, I was still very sleepy, and I drove home. I was okay, but when I got home, I was like, oh, I want to go take a nap. Then I was like, I need to do the video. So it is very relaxing, and it's nice. I think next time I go, I want to try it with some of the meditation music, maybe a guided meditation, because this time I did no sound, no light. And the last 5 minutes when the music, the 5 minute warning music came on, I did turn the pod light on. And so I did at least get to experience 5 minutes with the light. And I definitely appreciated it better without the light. So next time I go, I'm definitely going complete dark, pod doors closed, because I did appreciate that. But I do want to see what it would be like with a guided meditation. I think with something for my brain to focus on versus all the chatter in my head and me having to focus on my breath and things like that, I feel like I would kind of get to that calming point a little bit quicker. I don't know. I guess I want to try it and see. So I'll get to experience it both ways. But I know for sure I loved it in the dark, complete pitch black dark with the pod doors closed. It's very humid in there, so expect that too. It's really, really humid in there. The water was warm. It wasn't hot. It wasn't cold. The air temperature was just right. So yeah, that's it. I think everybody should give it a try. It was really just the feeling of zero gravity and how heightened your senses are, and then how relaxed you can get if you allow yourself to. It was really cool. And at one point I felt like I didn't feel like I was floating. I felt like I was being hugged by like a big pillow. Like I really felt like I was just being hugged by the softest, most comfortable, poofy pillow. It didn't feel like I was floating. And I actually had to slip my hand underneath me to see. I was like, did I touch the bottom? Like, because it didn't feel like I was floating, but no, I was definitely floating. It was really interesting. So if any of you guys have tried float therapy, I would love to hear what your experience was. I've had friends, explain it as very poetic. My friend Nicole actually explained her experience, and it sounded incredible. And she's an amazing writer, and it sounded way more involved than my experience. Mine was more weird sci-fi people in my head. I know I'm weird. And my breath and stuff like that, focusing on my breath. But I'd love to hear what happened for you when you went into the pod. So let me know, and I will share my experience when I go part 2. Talk to you soon.